In the SEC, Zach Arnett is let go today, earlier this morning. One thing we talked about for a while is that his contract was basically a contract that landed somewhere between a coordinator and a head coaching job. He wasn't being paid like a normal SEC head coach, replacing the Mike Leach after his death. Zach Arnett had a very small buyout of $4 million. And it just didn't feel like the right fit, him as a head coach at Mississippi State. So they've exercised that opportunity to jump in and do the small buyout and get into the coaching carousel.
I mean, this is so quick, man. It is so quick. I cannot believe Mississippi State, who I think by and large, and this is going to sound as an insult, and it probably is. I think by and large has kind of known their spot in the SEC. They've understood it. They've appreciated the fact that a guy's not going to come in here and win 11 games right away. It's going to be a build at a place like Mississippi State, and we're going to be patient with a guy.
To your point, right now, when you look at the new realignment of the SEC, I think Mississippi State in the pecking order is 15 of 16.
Yeah, I mean, only Vandy is
fair?
worse. Yeah, I think it's entirely fair.
Yeah.
Only Vandy's worse. And there have been guys that have won there, but they have traditionally been patient with coaches to try to sort it out. And to do this in the middle, not the middle, but near the end of the first year, not even 1 year under the belt, is remarkable to me.
Did you bring up San Diego State because of Arnett?
I did not.
Okay, because he was the defensive coordinator there.
So maybe this is a mutual parting?
And I don't know. If I'm San Diego State, I would take a look at him. He looked really uncomfortable this year, but it was uncomfortable circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, keep in mind, he was replacing a guy that was beloved throughout college football, but played a very unique is the complimentary word I'll use for Mike Leach's offense. So he doesn't coach that way, and his offensive style to complement his defense wasn't going to do that. So they had to do a transition, a 360 in the offensive world to what he was trying to do this year, and they lost their quarterback in Will Rogers. And so they were the backup quarterback for most of the year, trying to put in a new system with the old roster. Those things always take time to work. When you go from a system like Mike Leach or Johnson over at Georgia Tech to what they try to do in modern, that takes a while. And what it came down to is they had a 1 year glance, 10 games it turns out, to look and say, okay, do we want to ride this for 3 years and then fire him, or do we want to do it now and jump in and he bridged the gap between the death and through this football season. Now, without just, almost stepping on Mike Leach's grave, we can get rid of that coaching staff.
Well, if you're going to not be a successful coach, there are two ways you can go about this that might keep your job. Number one, you can be super folksy like Sam Pittman. And everybody's like, we just got blasted, but Sam talked about drinking a cold beer. I kind of like the guy, right? You can be, and I don't have a great example of this one, but you can be over the top chewing butt all the time, right? You're up and down the sidelines raving like you care.
Will Muschamp.
Yeah, that's a good one. Very good, Jim.
Thank you.
So you can either be Will Muschamp, like super fiery, or you could be Sam Pittman, super folksy. One of the two. Zach Arnett was in between. Like the cameras showed him, the headset was always up. He always had the arms crossed. He was just watching the game.
Yeah, looked like he was pouting.
No emotion.
Yep. Always looked like he was pouting.
No emotion. And you can tell me as a player all you want, oh no, coach in practices, he's full of emotion. I don't ever see it on Saturday.
Yeah.
And you're losing games.
But if I was San Diego State, I would take a look.
Yeah, man, that may be why. Maybe this was structured because he knew Brady Hoke was about to do this, and he's like, I'll make this easy for everybody.
Yeah, I'll do this 1 year.
That's
and
right. You fire me, I'm going to take the San Diego State job, and y'all get to start.
Yeah, it makes a lot more sense now that you talk about Brady Hoke and that he is going to be retiring, because typically when you lose 51-10, the losing coach gets fired first, right? Isn't that the way that works?
That's normally the way it works. Yeah.
Texas A&M on Sunday, getting ready to pay $76 million. It looks like after a 51-10 win, fires Jimbo Fisher. To Lance's point, they had a secret session of the regions on Thursday night to go ahead and make this decision to fire him anyway, regardless of this outcome. And I don't know if it's true or not, but there is a picture floating around that they presented, the 12th Man Foundation presented Ross Bjork at halftime with a big check of $160 million.
Like the golf tournament check?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was a big presentation, if that picture is true.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, $160 million.
That's amazing.
At halftime of the Mississippi State game, if that is a true picture.
Yeah, they can't run out of money, it looks like.
Yeah. So
That's true.
they're like, we're going to make this halftime presentation right here, $160 million. So tomorrow when you read that we're paying $76 million to Jimbo, you guys can do the math. We got millions left over.
That's right.
Just on this one check.
Money in the bank.
No championships there, but they got a money tree.
They got a money tree.
I'd rather have a money tree than championship.
Those oil wells are awful deep, it appears.
But LT, you've said this for a long time, longer than anybody, that if you're that rich, you've only got so many years left on earth. Why not go ahead and pull the plug and try to get somebody in who can win, right?
Yeah, and look, and people are like, oh, I bet, he's so excited about this. I never wanted the guy to lose his job. I just thought he was overrated, overhyped. I never thought he'd win a championship. I thought that they would struggle. You get the right guy in College Station, and that job and that program can become a problem.
Nobody's ever unlocked it. Somebody perhaps will one day. Nobody had ever really unlocked LSU until Nick Saban got there, and it's been a behemoth since.
Yeah.
Nobody ever unlocked Florida until, was it Charlie Pell?
Really, Steve Spurrier.
Steve Spurrier, really.
Yeah, Charlie Pell and them
He
cheated
started it, but
and got it good.
Yeah, but Spurrier unlocked Florida, and off and on, they've been a behemoth ever since.
Yeah,
I mean,
Kirby Smart has unlocked Georgia.
No doubt.
Yeah.
They had that 1 year with Vince Dooley. They were good. They were never great.
But can you imagine? I've heard a lot of people say this, and I think we talked about this a long time ago, but if you get fired and you get $76 million, it softens the blow. But imagine getting $19.2 million, which he'll get within 60 days. And then he's getting $7.2 in the mailbox annually through 2031.
it's a great. I think the first 7.2 has to be there in 120 days. So 60 days you get 19, 120 you get 7.2.
I don't think we'll see him work again.
I don't think I would.
I would.
I mean, he would fit more comfortably in a place like Starkville
But why?
or back to West Virginia.
Yep.
And Ross Bjork hinted that there was some wording about all of it. 19.2 million will go in, obviously. Some wording about the rest of it in the contract that details will come out later. I wonder if there is some offset. Like if he goes back to West Virginia and pays $3 million, then that check is only $4.2 million that year or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. But to y'all's point, why would you even work?
I know. Why? What's the motivation?
So Neil Brown's not safe now after this weekend.
I don't think so.
It goes back and forth. But if I'm a West Virginia fan, do I want Neil Brown or do I want Jimbo Fisher?
Well, now you don't have to buy Jimbo out. That's the good news.
Yep.
He's already been bought out by somebody. You don't have to buy him out if, in fact, you wanted him. So, it's one of those, if you want to hire him, you at least don't have to pay the buyout on the other side. And I do want to say this. Lance has been right about this guy from day one. I was very stubborn with Jimbo Fisher.
Oh, I was worse. I mean, the guy won a national championship.
But Lance, this goes back. This is nothing new for Lance. This goes back to when he was hired. He told us that as an average coach that will not produce at A&M the way everybody thinks.
Well, I remember Feinbaum coming on with this. I guess we were doing mornings then.
No, I don't know. No, I think it was actually middle of the day.
I don't know. But I remember Feinbaum coming on with us saying he will win a national championship in College Station. And I think more of that is just, hey, look, we're giving you full control. We're giving you everything you need. There were no excuses because he went in there, and what he did recruiting-wise, that equates to a championship.
Actually, I think we were actually doing Paul's time slot when Paul came.
Could have been.
Yeah, maybe.
Might have
I
been.
don't know.
Yeah.
I would just say, for what you paid versus what you got back, and I said this yesterday, I think you could make an argument it is the greatest failed hire in college football history. If you consider what you invested versus what you recouped from that investment.
45 and 25 in 6 years.
Yeah,
I mean,
Mr. B says it right there. 15 coaches lost their job last year, paid a total of $71 million in buyouts. You're paying him $76 million for one coach.
That's right.
Just financially, it's the worst disaster maybe in sports history.
All things considered, you paid $2.7 million per win.
yeah.
When you consider the buyout and everything, $2.7 million per win.
When's the last time Kirby Smart lost on the road? I mean, I don't know. I'm just throwing it out
It's
there.
been 29 games since he's lost. I mean, 27
anywhere.
games since he's lost anywhere.
Guess what? Jimbo Fisher has lost 9 consecutive road games.
When's the last time Jimbo's won on the road? It's a bigger question. ESPN.com puts 3 coaches on the top tier and then some other coaches to consider. And there's different lists out there.
This is for A&M?
Texas A&M. Their top 3 coaches that are out there. Mike Elko, Jeff Traylor, Dan Lanning. They say that's the top tier candidates for Texas A&M.
Jeff Traylor is interesting. Boy, that'd be a meteoric rise to go from high school coach to UTSA to a place like a high-end SEC job.
Described at ESPN and at The Athletic as culturally the best fit of any coach that is successful.
Well, he is wired into that entire state, and I think he's done a hell of a job at Texas San Antonio. I know this season not as good as I thought it would be, but if you go back, Frank Harris is never injured with that toe. I think it's probably a different story. I think they probably have one loss, and that loss is to Tennessee. But right now they're playing their best football.
He's 55. But for those that don't know his story, multiple year high school state champion in the state of Texas, and multiple times voted by the other high school coaches in Texas as the coach of the year. So not only did he win in a way where the other coaches loved him, and which would help tremendously in recruiting, a lot of people believe.
He is wired. I do feel like both Elko and Traylor, you can get a yes from at any time. Like, you don't have to rush to get those guys. Those guys tell you yes if you ask them today, if you ask them in January, if you ask them in April. They tell you yes.
Mike Elko, 46 years old, was there as a defensive coordinator during the early build of Jimbo,
right.
including the 2020 year.
Yeah, and he's at Duke now, for those that don't know, and has done an excellent job at Duke in spite of them getting the field rushed on them against Carolina. I mean, the fact that we expect them to win as much as we do now just shows you how good Elko has done, because that is a terrible program historically. Lanning's a different story. Like, Lanning is going to be the hottest name out there for everybody, and it's weird because Oregon just signed him to a nice contract, and it's like a $20 million buyout. Yet it does not stop anybody from speculating on Lanning going to a lot of open jobs if they come open.
Yeah, I think Lanning stays put right now.
Yeah, it is a $20 million buyout, the new contract he signed this year, assuming he signed it. And I would tell you, I don't know what the wording is, if there's any offset to that or anything, or they can pay it out over a long period of time. I don't know what it is. But, I mean, you just paid somebody $76 million.
Yeah, what was that check? What was that big golf check they gave, though?
It was $160 million.
Yeah, we still got some left.
You got some to play with.
Yeah.
I do agree with Brown, though. I think both Traylor and Elko will say yes at any point.
Yep.
I don't think you can go wrong with any of those three.
Yeah, so you don't even have to go any further.
Well,
those three
I do want to hear the next tier, though.
Well,
Okay.
Lance Leopold's got to be on the next tier.
Okay, Urban Meyer, by the way, not on anybody's list here. Remember, though, at Texas, they offered him a $10 million-ish contract per year to take the Texas job before Sark. And they may tell you Sark was their first offer, but there were good people, good sources that says their money people reached out to Urban to see if he was interested. He wasn't interested. If he's not interested in Texas, a few years later, he's not interested in Texas A&M, right?
Yeah.
I would not think so. No.
What I would
pass
on Texas and go to Texas.
No, I don't think so.
There are two names that I would go in front of them. I don't know if either one of these guys would take the gig.
There's 5 coaches on what is considered the others.
But
Okay.
Kyle Whittingham, I'd make a run. He's a Utah guy. He played at BYU. He's lived there forever. I don't think he would take the job.
62, you would do that?
I would. Man, Kyle Whittingham can coach. If I was like, hey, look, if you ever want to win a championship, I know you've come really close here at Utah, but you could do it at A&M. And then the other is Jonathan Smith, because Oregon State is kind of, it's his alma mater. He's built this program. The guy can coach, and it will be back on the radar when he beats Washington
Yeah, I was
this
about
week.
to say, you let him beat Washington this week or Oregon in the Civil War or both.
But my point is, the only reason he would leave is they don't have a conference now.
That's right.
And, as good as that job might have been for him, the unknown now, and Texas A&M is kind of a known.
But real quick on him, this just kind of occurred to me. He's playing Washington and Oregon back-to-back, right? He's got Washington this week in the Civil War.
Well, he could wreck everybody's
But
season.
you win both those, and he might be the hottest commodity in college football.
Yeah.
I mean, my gosh.
If this was the Big Ten, Nick Saban's staff would be sending signals. Somebody needs to be sending signals to Jonathan
All right,
Smith.
who's
there.
on the next
But
tier?
all those guys that were mentioned and I mentioned, I'd be completely happy with those hires.
Okay, here are the 5 others, 2 that you love, LT, Chris Klieman and Kalen DeBoer.
Boy, Klieman's interesting.
Yeah, DeBoer's a West Coast guy.
Washington got into the Big Ten.
Yeah, I don't know if DeBoer would take it. Klieman would probably take this.
He would, and I think Klieman's a good coach in spite of the ending of the Texas game. He did not handle the Texas game very well at all, and they had every opportunity to win that game.
But just based on the fact that he won a Big 12 championship last year, and he was in every situation to beat Texas this year.
It's
But
described in
you've-
these stories, Brown, as Klieman. They sort of reference Chris Peterson, how he was comfortable in Boise and was very hesitant to leave that situation. They describe Klieman as a guy who's really happy where he is and will be hesitant to leave, not because College Station is some metropolitan area, but just the pressure of coaching in the SEC like that and dealing with all the boosters and the money is probably something he doesn't want to do.
Here's the question I ask about Klieman to you, though, Lance. Do you think, and he's a coach so he can change, but the one thing I hate doing is hiring a coach and then saying, we want you to change. I want to hire you because I like it. But that style of play, what do you think about that in the SEC? It's what he did at North Dakota State, and it won big there. It's what he's done at Kansas State, and it has won there. It's won a conference championship. But does that style of play translate to the SEC to you?
I think it could. I mean,
I don't know if it does. I mean, I think it's a good Big 12. I'm in the mix every year style of play.
Again, they won the Big 12 last year.
I know. Yeah. But then they also go play Alabama. And now it's a bowl game. I discount a lot of what happens in bowl games, and they got completely smashed by Alabama. But I think the guy's a good coach. It would not be my first choice.
The other three coaches I don't think are real, but Sonny Dykes.
Oh, he's real.
No.
Sonny Dykes, James Franklin.
No. Oh, that's if they hire James Franklin.
And Lane Kiffin.
No, James Franklin's the perfect hire for them. That's who Texas A&M has been the last
That's
decade.
who they just fired.
That's who they just fired was James Franklin.
Or Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, So Deion does not get mentioned at all.
Not in the story I read at ESPN.com.
Interesting.
Yeah, the Florida fans I talked to, hey, if you guys could get Deion, no on both of them. Deion, the luster has come off.
It has come off a little bit, but it ain't going to stop him from being mentioned for jobs like this.
Well, if I was A&M, I'd be disgusted if I hired Deion after Jimbo Fisher, just because he's not proven.
Well, I'd be more disgusted if I hired James Franklin.
I mean, look, he did a great job in September and into October, and they've surpassed expectations, but I just don't think there's a big enough sample size.
Yeah, I will read more articles, and if I see more names, I'll throw them out to you as we go through what is expected to be a lengthy process. But I'll ask you this question before we start to head to break here.
Mike Norvell's another one to take a look at.
Do you think they have they've already got in their mind who it's going to be? You think they've already got a backroom deal done?
I don't think you pull the trigger in this Board of Trustees meeting Thursday before a game's even played that you won, by the way, 59-10. If somebody on that Board of Trustees doesn't say, we got our guy, let's do it.
I don't know. I thought about this, but I think A&M is so confident, arrogant. They've got the pockets are so deep that we just mentioned 5 or 6 guys I'd be totally comfortable with, and I think their mindset might be, hey, look, we're A&M. We can get any of these 5 or 6 guys.
The thing about pulling the trigger this quick is a lot of people will say, well, you're first in the game. That doesn't matter with A&M. They're going to be the best job in the game. Who's going to have a better opening than A&M this year?
Yeah, I even think if Michigan opens up, I think A&M's a better job.
Yeah, I mean, it's an SEC job that pays a ton of money that's in Texas with the facilities. I mean, it's a fantastic job.
I'm sorry to be that guy that always, I love raw emotion, but sometimes Sharon Moore post-game the other day.
You mean after Harbaugh died?
It looked to me like about how much he loved Michigan and these players and stuff. Looked to me like he was letting people know that when Jim Harbaugh leaves and heads off to the NFL after this year.
That was a me move?
That was a campaign speech?
That those tears were really good broadcast news tears.
I'll lower taxes and I'll get America back to work. Wait a minute.
Can you not see, though? I mean, literally at the 11th hour, he's handed this where Harbaugh takes him aside and said, hey, look, we've got this journey going. I completely believe in you. I'm going to be at my hotel room watching. You are the guy that's going to get us through that. I think that raw emotion could take over.
I'm not saying that maybe it was all real, but it was a good, I could be the next coach at Michigan moment for him.
But he ain't going to be the next coach at Michigan.
You say that. He's a Michigan man now. He's been there 6 years.
I tell you what, look good in these situations, though. And if he wants a Mississippi State or something like that, I mean, he can definitely cash in on
to me,
this.
Mississippi State's going to be more fascinating because we know how good A&M is. We just don't know where Mississippi State is or what they can get.